Morning, Carl.
Andy, thought you were working from home today.
Nope, I've got to get some stuff done.
Oh, I just thought all non-essential personnel were working from home.
Ouch. Well, that seems a little harsh. What are you doing, by the way?
I'm prepping.
Prepping for what?
The virus, you fool. It's spreading more than ever.
Okay, well, just calm down. They told us not to panic.
Not to panic? That's exactly what they say when you're supposed to panic.
I don't think that's true.
If you're not supposed to panic, why are they calling it a panicdemic?
You mean pandemic?
No, Andy. That's a lunch meat.
Okay, listen, either way, I think you're overreacting.
How so?
Yeah, we're supposed to take precautions, but we're supposed to remain calm. Now, Carl, those are allergies. I'm not sick. Don't. Put it down. Listen, I don't want you taking this too far.
What were you saying?
Nothing.
Listen, Andy, if you read what I read this morning, you'd be scared too.
What did you read? I mean, what one-sided, unreliable source did you read from this morning, Carl?
It's called the Bible.
Oh, I didn't mean...
Oh, I bet you didn't. James 4:8, wash your hands, you sinners.
Carl, that's not...
You ain't doing this again. There's no special meaning, no gray area. It says it as pure as day. Wash your hands, you sinners. From now on, this is all I'm doing. If I'm not constantly washing my hands and staying clean, I'm not obeying God.
Carl, I'd hate to bust your nonsensical bubble right now, but that passage is way more deeper than that.
You're telling me I'm taking this out of context?
Yes, absolutely. See, Carl, this passage has nothing to do with washing our physical hands. All it's about is pursuing God and God alone. It's about turning away from our sinful desires and only pursuing Him.
Wow. I guess context is super important.
Yep.
I guess that means I never have to wash my hands again.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. You still need to wash your hands and be a decent human being.
I think I heard you loud and clear.
Please don't.
Thank you, Andy. Everything that you do, it's so special. Every single bit, all your knowledge of Scripture, it's the best. I love it. I love you. I love everything about you. You are truly an amazing man, and there's nothing that I wouldn't do to protect you. I'm going to protect you from everything. This virus, it doesn't have anything on us. We can defeat it together. All right? All right.
What's up, guys?
Do that again.
What's up, guys? What's up, guys? All right, how's everybody doing today? Hopefully y'all's week has been all right.
Yeah.
This is officially take 2 of this video because the other one got interrupted.
But y'all are worth it.
And we did not know, but we love y'all so much, we're gonna record this again.
Yeah.
But anyways, I hope y'all's week has been great. I know mine, at the beginning of all this Corona lockdown stuff, I was doing really good at staying on a schedule.
Yeah.
But this week
Not
has
so
been
much.
interesting,
Yeah.
not so much.
It's been a little hard to stay on schedule.
I don't even believe in schedules anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, his days are upside down completely. He's up all night, sleeps all day. We had to go to his house, drag him out of bed, kicking and screaming to get this recording done.
That is true for most of it, except for none of it.
Yeah. Anyways, so it's been an interesting week. Learning this new normal. I don't like it, but it's fine. We'll survive. But yeah, we're doing this a little bit differently today. We did Zoom last week, but from now on we're gonna post a message on one Wednesday, and the next Wednesday we'll get on Zoom. So next Wednesday we'll see y'all on Zoom, and we'll break out, have some fun things on there. Throughout the week, if you just find yourself really, really bored, which I know a lot of y'all maybe are, and you're trying to find things to keep you busy, maybe you need some music to listen to, we are gonna have playlists on here on our YouTube channel where you can go and find some music to listen to. You can find podcasts or devotionals or just something. They talked about they wanted to do some funny videos.
We'll do some skits.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
So just get on our YouTube page, which you're already here, and go find those different things. Like and subscribe. And then we also have social media. So we are on Instagram now.
Wait, we're on Instagram?
We're
Earlier you
on-
called it Gram,
We're on Insta. I called it Insta.
but you also said Gram a couple times.
Do it for the gram.
Do it for the
Does that
gram.
show my age, or do it for the Vine, whatever it is?
Wow, Vine no longer, that's
I
too
know.
soon.
That was crazy.
But we are on Instagram. It's Sold Out Students, and then we're on Facebook, and we are planning on getting a Snapchat. So watch out for that, so that you are aware of everything that's happening. So next week on our Zoom call, we have a fun little thing coming up. So what are we doing next week?
One second. Next week, we'll be playing a game that is survivor-based because we're all trying to survive out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to find some TP, trying to find some food, trying to find time to spend with other people. For some of us, that's more of a need than others. Okay.
I don't like being alone.
But anyway, so in the Zoom call that we have, we will be playing a Kahoot
We all
game.
looked at you.
And
Wait, playing what game?
we're going to be playing on Kahoot, which
Yeah.
we'll need y'all to download it before the Zoom call, which it's really simple. App Store, whatever y'all are. You'll log in, we'll give you a code, you'll come in, we'll have the questions already ready, be talking to you while y'all do it, so we know y'all aren't cheating or anything.
Yeah.
But for this game, we're going to be basing it off of Survivor questions, kind of like, like wilderness stuff, like
Ooh, wilderness.
which side does the sun rise? Where does it set? Simple
East,
stuff like that.
west.
I don't know.
Give me something challenging.
I tried to make her use a sundial the other day. She couldn't figure it out. But anyway,
You need sunlight.
for these games, it's not just a simple fun thing. There's also some stuff at stake.
Ooh, what's at stake?
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A.
If that's your choosing, the winner of the game will be getting a free DoorDash from your sponsors here. And that isn't the only thing. If you win more than
There's
one, you will
more?
be getting points. These points are consecutive and they will be tallied up at the end for a grand prize whenever we're all out of coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
Yeah.
We don't know what that prize is, but it will be
Yeah.
great.
So when we're all together again, we're gonna look at your points, and whoever has the most points is the overall survivor of the corona. Hopefully you survive corona, and you'll get a really cool prize. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited for that. So come ready with your Kahoot, and if we got to figure out device issues, we will do that together. So yeah, so today we're gonna jump into the message now. Before we jump in, we are talking about this topic of waking up. So I found this really cool video. So pay attention to the video and. We're talking about wake up. Like the Lord really laid this on my heart this week about our generation, this generation, Generation Z, the millennials, like us just being awake to Him and waking up to His Spirit. So yeah, we're going to talk about sleep physically first. So on a personal opinion, I love sleep so much. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love
It's a personality trait for her.
What?
You know those girls that are like, I'm a napper. That was her.
I
Was
do
or
have
is?
I do have a sign that says good at naps above my bed.
Wow, overachieving.
And you know if there's a sign that says it. It's definitely
I took my first really good nap yesterday. Like woke up at
Wait,
like
your first, like,
no,
ever.
no, like in a while.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, how can you be good at naps if that was your first
It had
really
been a
good
while.
nap?
It's an art. You have to know.
You have to know how to go to sleep.
Yeah. It is like because you don't want to fall into like a super deep sleep.
Fun fact, it takes 10 to 15 minutes to fall asleep.
See,
I knew that.
Listen, in the first, I had this really cool thing in the first take we took. I did a little game with them. They already know the answers, so, huh?
And otters hold hands when they go to sleep.
They
So that
did.
they don't drift apart.
Exactly. They got to stay close
See,
to
I
one
asked
another.
that question and I thought I was going to stump them. It didn't stump
Yeah, when we went to the game before we started, she's like, no one knows these answers. And right off the bat,
I knew,
Landon
like-
got like 3 points.
Yeah.
I had like 2 points. And you were like,
They did
come
pretty
on.
good. I would have gotten 0 probably. Anyways, so yeah, what are y'all's feelings on sleep during this quarantine time? Like, has it changed y'all's sleep schedules at all? I know.
I've tried to stay on my normal routine, but
it's
waking up
borrowed.
at 6 in the morning and staying at home kind of has turned into waking up at 8 in the morning. And today I
Scandalous.
woke up at 10 and I was like, I gotta get up, gotta get ready
What
for the
time did you
recording
wake up
thing.
today,
Yeah, what
Landon?
time? Didn't you go to bed at like, you went to bed at like 4 this morning or 5 this morning?
This morning,
didn't you?
usually it's 6,
Yeah.
maybe.
See, I try when I don't have something
I wake up,
going on.
I go to sleep when he wakes up.
Yeah, pretty much. When I don't have anything Chi Alpha going on in the evening or youth going on, I try to get in bed by 10 p.m., not a.m.
I try not to get into bed till at least 5.
It's got to be sunny when he goes to sleep.
That's wild.
I do like hearing the birds chirp. It's soothing.
Yeah, so it's definitely changed, I think, all of our sleep schedules. I don't know if I like it. I like getting more sleep, but I used to not be able to sleep past 8:30. I wake up at like 11 now, and I don't like it. I just,
You slept most of the day away at that point. Might as well stay in bed and wait until the next morning. Maybe
Doesn't-
grab some food and some
doesn't
water.
give me an
That's what I do.
opportunity to take a good nap. But anyways, during this time in quarantine, it can be really tempting to kind of fall asleep spiritually, and not just in quarantine, like in everyday life, with all of the temptations, with all of everything that's going on, it can really be tempting to just kind of drift off and not be active in your faith, not be active in your walk with Jesus. And even like in this time, I've been listening to a few speakers throughout this time. Michael Miller said, in this time of like this virus where we have no idea what tomorrow holds, it really is a shaking. And he says, like, let these shakings happen so that we can see the unshakable kingdom in our midst. And basically that means, like, Lord, allow these shakings to wake your church up to who you are, which is what we're going to talk about. So
We're going to be in what? Romans 13, 11 through 14?
Romans 13, 11 through 14. And Ronald, you can go ahead and read it.
Man, I'll try not to mess up like I did the first time through. All right, Romans 13, 11 through 14. This is going to be in the CSB version. I prefer my ESV, but I was told I had to read from this one. So if I mess up,
It's the one I had, sorry.
it's good. This is a really good one. I have Spurgeon commentary on this one, so I like that. So.
Good.
But all right,
Spurgeon.
who is Spurgeon? He's an ODG, which for those of us that's not hung up with Chi Alpha, that's old dead guys or
Come
girls.
hang out with Chi Alpha.
We like old dead people.
They write really dope books, and they've spent lots of time in the Bible, and
And they've died, so they can't
they
change
know what
their
they're talking
mind.
about. But anyways, back to Romans. I digressed. Besides this, since you know the time, it is already the hour for you to wake up from sleep, because now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The night is nearly over, and the day is near. So let us discard the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us walk with decency in the daytime, not in, I'm going to butcher that one again, carousing. Why do they have to say words like that? Carousing. And drunkenness. Not in sexual impurity and promiscuity. See, we got that one. Not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ, and don't make plans to gratify the desires of the flesh.
Darn.
Dern. And anyways, that Dern, in her notes for Romans, right here, I don't know if you can read that, it says Dern Paul, which Paul wrote Romans, and she's Derning Paul. Like, she
I was
read
just
it,
saying, like,
and
dang,
like
that's
for the
good.
longest time in that last recording, I was like reading mine, and I was like, what is that? And I was like, Dern Paul, and like I almost died of laughter at one point.
It's a good. It's.
I mean, it is. That's like a Dern, like Dern.
I
moments.
can't do the boom snap.
That'll
so
yeet type deal.
Yep. Anyways, so we're gonna talk about this idea of what spiritual sleep can cause us to slip into. Physical sleep. I looked at the the actual cycle of how we sleep at night, And there's 5 stages. Stages 1 and 2 really go together, and they said stages 3 and 4 really go together. And then there's a 5th stage. So stages 1 and 2 is kind of when you close your eyes, you're slowing down, your heart rate's slowing down, brain activity is a little less.
That's in the first 10 to 15 minutes.
First 10 to 15 minutes, and then a little bit extra is when you actually fall asleep. That's stage 2. But
Another
it's
10 to 15 minutes.
really, really light sleep. And then stages 3 and 4, this is where you become a little bit more difficult to wake up. You're not in like the deepest sleep, but you are in deep sleep, and you'll probably be pretty angry if you're woken up. This is when your muscles become limp.
If you can be woken up, like I can't be woken up from that.
This is where your muscles become limp and your body function just kind of decrease. You're not really doing anything because you're asleep. And then stage 5 is the REM sleep, which we discovered means
Rapid eye movement. We didn't discover. Brittany discovered. Lana and I were like, REM, that's rapid eye movement.
Yeah, because we're really smart.
I didn't know that's what it meant, but yeah. So this is when
But you looked it up, you said.
She was the
I
one with the
did.
sleep facts, but we're the ones who know the facts. Darn.
anyways,
Darn.
Big darn moments.
you're
Big
gonna hear a
Dern.
lot of Derns because they're trying to make fun of me, but it's
We're not making fun of you.
It's
a
a
Dern.
new
This
thing.
is Dern.
Dern. Okay.
Dern.
It stands for
We're
something.
not making fun of you. We're agreeing with you. Dern, Paul.
Darn is a good
Cool.
thing.
Anyways, so this is the stage. This stage is when you begin to dream, and your body movement, your body engagement, brain engagement kind of becomes irregular. And they also said it's really similar to being awake.
Oh, wow.
So we're gonna look at each of those. So
Wake up over there.
I'm trying.
somebody needs some sleep over there.
I need that step 5.
Step 5.
So yeah, the first stage of like spiritual sleep that we can slip into, which kind of correlates with stages 1 and 2 of your actual sleep cycle. So when you slow down, when you close your eyes. So this is when, in like a spiritual sleeping type way, you become unaware. So this is kind of where you kind of turn your eyes away from Jesus for a second, and then you're like, oh wait, maybe a little bit of like, it's really unintentional, but you lose sight of Jesus and you kind of become numb to him, if that makes sense.
Kind of like you go to camp, you get like, you're on fire. You go
Yeah.
home a couple days, maybe a few weeks later, you're like kind of like,
yeah, you don't have that same intensity
Yeah.
that you had, which I think all of us have probably had that experience where you're like, yeah, like let's do this, let's go win kids for the kingdom, and then you get back and you're like,
I'm always on fire.
So yeah, and like looking at Romans, he talks about since you know the time. So like we know, like a lot of us as Christians, we know what's right, we know what's wrong, we know that we're supposed to keep our eyes on Jesus. But just like we kind of allow ourselves to slip out of that camp high, same thing, you kind of allow yourselves to slip into this unawareness of Jesus. And in this time, like it can be really easy to become unaware because you're isolated, you're just by yourself, and you just kind of find things to keep you busy, which can be honestly a little more dangerous than being out in the world and actually seeing things that are happening. But when you're so isolated and you don't allow yourself to be aware of what's happening, to be aware of the presence of Jesus, it can actually be really dangerous, because you're allowing those inward temptations. Because a lot of us, when we're at school, when we're at work, we face outward temptations. So like he talks about later in the verse, like the partying, the sexual temptation, like we face all of those. But right now we're probably facing a lot of inward temptations. So a lot of self-isolation.
trying to just sleep the day away, binge Netflix or TVs and movie shows and
Video games.
staying
Yeah.
up all night, sleeping all day,
FaceTiming people.
FaceTime. Well, I mean, that's staying in social contact,
Yeah.
Is it though?
but distanced.
Yeah, I mean, and even that, like, that can be a way of you trying to keep yourself busy. Like, just like you don't want to be alone. You don't want to be alone with your thoughts. Sometimes it's not always good to be alone, but sometimes it is good to have a moment where you just sit and allow the Lord to. All right. So in this time, it can be really easy to slip into those inward temptations like we were talking about. And in Hebrews, which we discovered, we don't know who the writer of Hebrews is. I thought it was Paul, not Paul. Maybe Paul. But the the writer of Hebrews, he's talking to the Jews and Gentiles, and the Jews actually were like pointing to the Gentiles, saying like, well, they don't know, so they're worse than us. Like, they know nothing about the law. But he's saying, well, you know the law. So he says, where is it at? For this reason, we must pay attention all the more to what we have heard so that we do not drift away. So for those of us who know what's right, who know we're supposed to keep our eyes on Jesus and we choose not to, like, that's a lot more dangerous.
Darn.
And it can be a little easier to drift away. So that's when you kind of slip into like that lukewarmness, and you choose not to like engage with Jesus. You choose not to have knowledge of him. And if we honestly knew Jesus and knew his sacrifice, like the idea of sleeping would like disgust us, because like he gave everything, and if we're not even willing to give a few minutes of our day, like how is that living the life that he's called us to? So so I know you had talked about a few things, like how do you feel like this unawareness, like what do you feel, like how do we slip into that, or how do we maybe wake up from that? Because we are going to talk about like how do you wake up from being unaware.
From the being unaware, that's where having community with people around you to kind of call you out would come into would be handy to have. And what's crazy is, as I was reading through the verses Brittany sent for us to share on today, I was reading and I was reminded of something that I had read for the internship in our theology, and it's actually in John, where they're talking about Lazarus. And Jesus is like, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, and the disciples are all, well, cool, if he's asleep, he'll wake up, he'll recover from whatever. And then Jesus is like, it's stated, Jesus said plainly, he's like, no, he's dead. Like, and what's cool is looking into that, like sleep used to be used as a euphemism for death. So be it spiritual death, physical death, and that one, like, it was like death. So what's crazy is like, as we are slipping away, like starting to fall asleep, a little bit of us is like spiritually like dying.
Yeah, we're choosing to kill a little bit of that because
Murder.
So like waking up from this unawareness is probably the easiest one to wake up from. Like you said, be in community,
Called out Joel.
be willing to be called out, and just learning who he is by reading your word a little bit in the morning, by spending a little bit of time in prayer.
Which we have the same amount of time every day, but right now we've got a lot of time on our hands.
That next stage is the stages 3 and 4 in the sleep cycle. And it's where we become inactive. This one, like this is a tough one to think about. And in Romans, like he's talking about how let us walk with decency as in the daytime. So not just being awake, not just being aware, but actually being active and walking with decency. Like, I love that he uses the word walk, because it's not like you're at a full sprint. It's not that all these works that you're going to do are going to, because the Lord doesn't count your works. He just counts your willingness. And so be willing to get a little uncomfortable. And in this becoming an active, like what do you think whenever you hear like that becoming an active? Like, what does that mean to you, like, in your Christian walk?
Oh, in my Christian walk, I can't use my actual explanation.
I liked the analogy. That's what I was saying.
What I was saying was that it's kind of like James Bond, or like a spy. Like, whenever they get unactivated, they're no longer told, like, their jobs. They're no longer forced to do whatever their task was. Whenever you're unactivated, you're given back into, like, your day-to-day life. You're no longer called to a higher calling. So it's like... Yeah. Being unactivated means being tasked with something to do.
Yeah. And we're all called to go and make disciples. And so if we're not doing that, if we're not pursuing Jesus in our own walk, if we're not becoming a disciple, then we are becoming inactive, and we're not fulfilling that task that he's called us to. And that same thought about walking, like you have to work your spiritual muscles. You have to work out spiritually, which we talked about a little bit. So like when you think about that, like working out your muscles physically, you don't just start.
Yeah, you don't go max right away.
Right. It's a little bit at a time. So spending
Start with just the bar.
Start with just the bar, yeah. But yeah, if you continuously work out your spiritual muscles, you're gonna in turn be able to max out. And beauty of it is, like, in the spiritual realm, we're never gonna max out. Like, we're like, you continue to learn every like
Max grows as you get stronger. It's not a compliment.
well, yeah,
You know, when you work out and you get stronger, your max becomes more.
your max becomes more. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So just like these ODGs, they never stop learning. So continue to stay active. If you didn't hear that, he said except when they die. They're probably learning with Jesus up there.
No, they're praising Jesus. Jesus.
Anyways, so just like Jesus made the disciples be a little uncomfortable sometimes, they had to work those spiritual muscles. When he sent them out to go perform healings, and they came back to him and they were like, bro, we didn't do anything. Like, nobody was healed.
No one was healed.
And Jesus like looks at him and he's like, if only you had the faith the size of a mustard seed. And so it was a learning moment for the disciples. It was probably a little hard for the disciples to come back and say that. But
they did everything they thought they did everything they
Yeah.
needed to do.
Well, it's probably embarrassing too.
Yeah.
Like while they're sitting there, like, they're called, they're his disciples, and they go out there and they can't do anything. People are like, "Don't y'all run with that Jesus guy? Like, that boy's healing people left and right. Y'all can't
Yeah.
even fix my ankle. What is this?"
And that's where like things can get twisted within Christianity, to where we think we know who Jesus is, but we actually don't. We actually don't have that mustard seed faith. And then we go out and try to talk about it. We try to spread Jesus, and then we actually internally we don't believe it for ourselves because we're inactive in it. And so if you go try to run a marathon tomorrow and you haven't gotten up and ran down your block, you're probably not gonna be able to do it.
I mean, you might,
You can walk it.
but you'd probably kill it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And or
be
be
an
in
old
bed
dead guy.
for a couple months.
So yeah, in this time, you know,
Delivery from Domino's.
in this time, just continue to stay active in the Word. Continue to stay active in your prayer life. Get up and like work out your faith a little bit, and if that's digging a little bit deeper than usually, if that's reading an old dead guy, if that's spending a little more time in prayer than you usually do, like make yourself uncomfortable, because when you do that, that's when, like we said, like those spiritual muscles grow, and you're going to be able to handle more as you go forward.
One of the commentaries Spurgeon has on there about this section is he's talking about like if you need light from let me read this real quick. Say again. Because like if you need light from a lamp, the first thing you do is like you light the candle inside of it, and then like that light shows through it. So if you're not building those muscles, as Brittany was saying, if you're not spending time in the Word regularly, and if you're not praying or worshiping or like just learning and keeping that candle lit, I mean that's what happens. Like we go to camp, it's a week worth of like just pure Jesus, pure hanging out with everybody. It's just like she's just getting like like straight like mainlining it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a good. You know when you mainline.
Well, like
Mainline.
Jesus on
Darn.
the main line. Sorry.
It's like those coffee patches from Meet the
Yeah, like come
Robinsons.
to Meet the Robinsons.
You wait for 72 days.
Yeah, so I love that analogy. But in
The
this,
coffee patch one or the mainline one?
I like both of them.
We could finish with the where she slaps it on his forehead.
I thought he was about to slap me in the face. So in this one, waking up from this one's going to be a little more difficult from being inactive, because it means you become just a little, like just, if you allow your muscles to become flabby, it becomes a little harder to develop those muscles back. It's going to take a little bit more time. So how would you wake up from this in this way? We talked about it.
Well, if you are at that like deep sleep, like if you're in that phase, I mean, it's going to take like Jesus, like the Lord's going to have to be like, there's going to have to be some intervening on his part. Like you're going to have to take stuff to the cross. You're going to have to repent.
Yeah.
And like you're going to kind of have to
Dig a
have
little
that
deeper.
flame kind of rekindled. Because
I
mean,
Like with the spy analogy, like usually when they're like called back in, like it's for something, like for a greater cause. Like whenever you realize your greater cause for becoming reactivated, like either it's like, oh, they're person got kidnapped, someone that they loved was killed. Like for us, it'd be like seeing the hearts of the people that are unsaved. Like that's our reason to be reactivated because we aren't done saving, so we should be called back into action.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to become aware first, and then waking back up to that activity and activating your heart. That's good. Yeah. So the last stage is that REM sleep. So this is when you begin to dream in your sleep cycle, when it's really similar to being awake, which I thought was kind of interesting because this next part we're talking about is when you become blind to reality, or you kind of have this false reality of who Jesus is, which is really dangerous if you get to a place where you're trying to twist the Bible, where you're trying to twist what Jesus is saying into what you want, which a lot of people do today, honestly. And
Yeah, they take one section, they don't read what's before, they don't read what's everything.
Yeah.
They just take it out of context that it's in, and they make it fit what they want it to.
just
it
like
on a
Cool
Facebook
Carl
post.
did. Cool Carl, when he was talking about washing your hands.
What a funny guy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. But yeah, in this passage of Romans, you know, he steps into talking about like we don't carouse in drunkenness, and we don't have sexual impurity. We don't partake in jealousy and like arguments. And so if you twist your reality to think that all those things are okay, when in the Bible, in the commandments, like it's clearly the Lord speaks against it. But so many people try to bring it into like, oh no, like drinking's okay. Like we can drink some wine. They drink wine in the Bible.
Which, fun fact on that wine, the alcohol per content in that was like so low, like
It was like
it's
grape
less
juice.
alcohol than our mouthwash has in it.
Yeah. So a lot of times in the old, like,
They were not getting turned.
yeah, in those times, the reason they drank wine was because the water was so impure.
And it's for medicinal stuff.
So, so yeah, if somebody tells you that, you got some fun facts you can shoot back at them.
What did you learn during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Jesus didn't drink alcohol. He drank grape juice.
Yeah. But yeah, if you allow like even small things like jealousy and anger, like those are all inward, which like I talked about, like that's what we're facing the most right now. Like we're not facing like the parties, we're not facing maybe the drinking right now. Like you're probably facing more inward things like jealousy, like anger, like depression. Like if you allow yourself to think like, oh, like I deserve this. Like Tim Keller was talking about how we twist the reality and we we justify our sin, we justify our jealousy, we justify our hurt, we justify our anger. That's actually completely twisted, and actually the word wrath or anger comes from the same root of wreath, which
Like
if you think about
Christmas wreath?
like a Christmas wreath, if
Oh,
you think
it does.
if you think about that, that's a twisted branch. And so anger is actually a twisted reality, to where you've twisted things to become what you want to see and what you think you deserve. So don't get to that point, especially in this time, because when you're alone with your thoughts for so long, you can allow things to become so twisted and wrong in your mind. And you can, even in reading your Bible, be aware and be actively researching, because some things in the Bible you actually got to dig deeper for what the meaning means.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a quote, but I can't remember what book it's from or who it's from, because I had like 7 books going the other week. I've since taken a pause because I'm trying to figure out where that quote was, but it was along those lines of like, the longer we are alone with our thoughts, whether they're like sane or insane, like there's no one there to tell us like those are wrong.
Yeah.
So like eventually those insane thoughts are going to become sane,
Yeah.
and there's no one to
Yeah,
point that out
'cause
to us.
We'll make ourselves seem right to ourselves. We're never going to be like, oh yeah, we're definitely wrong. We're all very smart in our own minds, whether we be actually smart or not. So when you only have your own ideas to bounce your ideas off of, you're going to think, oh yeah, it's a great idea. I'm going to go jump in a pool. It's freezing. I'm going to go do whatever, because no one's telling you that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
There's no one there. It's just you.
Yeah, and in times like this is where like the enemy tries to come in, because he can't tempt you with those outwardly things really right now.
Yeah.
So he's tempting you with these twisted thoughts and these twisted realities that make you think that, you know, sleeping all day, that's okay. Like,
Yeah, it's not okay.
that's not healthy. That's not what the Lord calls us to, even in this time. It is good. Like, he does call us to rest. I believe, like, this time is a time where we can rest and breathe. But it's not a time where we become unaware. It's not a time where we become inactive. And it's definitely not a time where you allow your reality to be completely shifted and twisted from this. And so don't allow yourself to get to that point. And, you know, Landon was talking about, like, the Pharisees and how they twisted so many things because the Pharisees were so focused on the laws. Like I know we talked about in The Chosen, one of the Pharisees literally says, the law is God.
And that after
Spoilers.
one of the persons saying, like, can, like, we not be open to, like, God growing in us? And he says no, because the law restricts that. The law is what God extends to. So he was putting a cap on what God could do just because he wanted to believe in something physical.
Yeah, and that's where, like, that term legalism, which may be a hard term to understand, but it's literally just where you're like, you're doing the bare minimum to get by, or you're following so closely to the law that you don't have relationship with Jesus. Like, don't ever allow your reality to be shifted to that, to where you're just, you know, doing the do's and not the don'ts. And, like, you know, a lot of, in, like, Christianity, that's what we get focused on is, well, I don't do that. I'm not as bad as that person over there. But, like, are you focusing on your relationship with Jesus? Because ultimately, like, he wants intimacy with you, which we talked about last week. And it's not about the laws. It's not about that routine. It is healthy. It is good to be in a routine of continuously reading your Bible, digging more into his word and his presence. But it's not all about that.
Yeah.
What is that saying? It's like, who do you do it for? Like, what are you doing? So it's like, even if you're doing something,
Why do you do the things you do, and who do you do it for?
yeah, so, like, even if you're doing something like holy, like praying, like, why are you praying and what are you praying for?
Yeah.
Like, you could pray to say, oh yeah, of course I'm a Christian, I pray. But you could be praying, you know, for no reason, like, oh, bless this food, just because that's the routine. Like, you don't want to be praying for your food because that's what you do before you eat. You want to pray for the food because you're thanking God for what the food is.
Yeah, you got to check that motive. So you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Oh, wow. That was a little cringe. Yeah, so don't allow your judgment to be clouded and, like, begin twisting your reality to what you want. Like, because that's where a lot of things get misconstrued, where we get confused when we want to take reality into our own hands and we want to live our life instead of surrendering it to Jesus. So let your reality be what Jesus wants, instead of trying to twist it into your own reality and justifying what you're doing just so that you can say you're a Christian and not feel bad about yourself. Because I think a lot of people do that. They're like, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. And then they try to look at things in the Bible and they're like, well, yeah, like it's fine because it says this, this, and this. No, like, take the word for what it is. Sit before Jesus and say, Lord, let you become my reality. Like, take this false reality from me. And yeah, so this is probably the hardest one to go back on. And this is kind of where you probably physically, spiritually need to be shaken in order. And, like, I think, like, this time of, you know, we talked about the shakings, like, this time of this virus, I really feel like is like a shaking of the Lord, like trying to awake his church, to activate his church, and to, you know, be aware of him, be aware of his power and his glory. And so in this time, like, if you're realizing, well, maybe I do have a false reality, maybe I'm living in the wrong mindset of who Jesus is and who I am to him, because even, like, false thoughts about yourself, like negative thoughts about yourself, like, that's a false reality. And I've had to learn that the hard way. Like, the Lord really convicted me like a year ago, like, the thoughts that you're thinking are false, and that's the reality that you've twisted to think it's okay for you to think those things about yourself. But no, because I think these things about you. And so even those negative thoughts about yourself, like, that's a false reality in itself. So in this time, like, allow the Lord to shake you a little bit. Like, go before the Lord and say, Lord, is there something in my heart, in my mind, that needs to be shaken off and broken off? Yeah, so...
Just like with Lazarus, I mean, and like Paul says in Romans, the time is now. It's time for you to wake up. Jesus is calling you to wake up from that sleep. And now's the time to be spending that abundant. Like, how many hours have you been watching Netflix today? Or
Are we talking to them?
or whatever? Like, just take 30 minutes or even just 15 and just spend it in the Bible. And the more you do that, the more you build those muscles, as we hit on earlier, the more awakened you become. And eventually you'll just start reading, and then like hours would have passed and you're like, darn, that was good. And you just continue reading.
Yeah, so we just want to leave you with, in Hebrews 12, the author of Hebrews, whoever it is, says, run with endurance. So we're not meant to just exist on this earth. We're really meant to excel and continue to pursue Jesus, continue to pursue his people. We're not just meant to be sat here, be called Christians, and that's it. Like, we're meant to be aware, we're meant to be activated, and we're meant to have like the right reality of Jesus. So in this time, like he's saying, when you have all this time, allow the Lord to examine your heart. Sit with the Lord and say, Lord, or even you first, like, is there something in me that I need to take to Jesus? And if you can't think of anything, I'm almost sure like anytime you go before the Lord, he's going to find something that you can tweak a little bit. So allow him to kind of wake you from whatever stage of sleep that you're in, and be willing to take the steps to do that, because it's not just going to be like an instant waking up. You're going to have to do some activity. You're going to have to engage in his word and in his spirit to be fully awake. And yeah, like I said last week, and this has just been going over and over in my spirit, like this time is not, this time of like quarantine, this time of like really slow kind of stillness is not meant for you to stop what you're doing. It's not meant to pause the process, but it's meant to propel what you're doing with Jesus. And so he didn't create you to live in a life of slumber. He did create you to live in a life of surrender. And don't get that confused either, because surrender, we can kind of think like, oh, well, the Lord can do everything. Like, I'm giving my life to him. But we still have work to do. We still have to be cautious of being aware. So wake up and become aware of his presence. Activate your heart to pursue him and his people, and ask him to show you how to see him rightly in this time. And we're all doing the same thing, because even in our own hearts and our own lives, it's easy to fall asleep in a way. It's easy to fall asleep spiritually in different areas. So we're doing the same thing as y'all. We're going through the same thing as y'all. We don't know what tomorrow holds. But we're trusting Jesus and trusting that he is going to awake his church in this time. So that's all I got. Do y'all have any last thoughts?
No, I mean, if y'all do, be sure to leave them down in the comments. We will respond. Brittany was not 100% how that affects the YouTube algorithm, but Landon and I got that covered.
We will respond.
And anyways,
Please
but
do.
reach out to any of us in leadership or anybody in your life that has some spiritual authority. Or
Follow us on all the
authority.
socials.
And I mean, y'all stay safe and follow the rules and guidelines of the authority in our lives.
Yeah. Next week, we'll be doing our Zoom meeting at 7:30. So get on, be ready with Kahoot. Landon will have the game ready for us.
Yep.
And we'll
And then
see
you
y'all.
be ready with your food, because we don't want to be sitting there for 30 minutes choosing what food you want.
Yeah, think about what food you want. I know, if I was you, I'd pick Chick-fil-A. But
She picks Chick-fil-A every time.
Every time.
Pick something less basic.
She's going to be the sad.
Basic.
But it has to be available through one of the apps. So.
Yeah, it's got to be open
pretty
right
much
now.
everything is available.
That's
right
not
now.
true.
And you should think local. So if there's a local restaurant, because you got to support your local peeps.
Wow.
All right,
What I
y'all.
got.
Well, we will see y'all next week. We love y'all. We're praying for y'all. And yeah, we'll talk with y'all next week.